Well, good morning, and thank you for joining us today. I get the honor and opportunity to introduce you to what started yesterday and will go on till Friday. For those of you that don't know me, I'm John Zannos, the new chairman ever so recently. And I'm also part of Canonical, the company behind Ubuntu, and we've been involved, and I've been involved with this OpenPOWER initiative from the beginning. So to start off, I always like to learn a little bit about the audience. How many of you are associated with the hardware side of the technology equation? All right. How many from the software side? All right. We'd like to see you guys out here. How many do both? All right. How many of you were here the last summit, the first summit? Good. A lot of new participants. We'll talk a little bit about this through the course of today. We're seeing rapid growth of both membership, innovation, and the hardware itself. How many of you have been involved in one open source project? How many two? Randall, wherever Randall is, you don't count. I know you have many, many. How many have been three? All right, the numbers start to winnow. The reason this is important, and I'll talk about this, is I have the luxury to be involved in a number of foundations that are going on and speak like this, be it OPNFV, Linux, OpenStack, OpenPOWER. And most recently, Open Networking with where John Donovan of AT&T had an opportunity to talk about AT&T being committed to open source, which was an exciting thing for those of us in the open source community. But it was interesting. It was an audience this big. And the same conversation, everybody's like, yes, I'm excited. I'm here to learn about open networking. And then it's like, how many people have ever done an open source project? Not that many. So that's an exciting thing we're all participating in. And it's an exciting thing to drive innovation. So many have seen this quote. And what it's about is over the last 5 years, how have software companies evolved, right? Software companies are changing the way normal industries operate. Movies, right? Netflix. The taxi industry, Uber. Hotels, Airbnb. A lot of this change is about bringing technology, but mostly user experience right at your fingertips. Uber isn't great because we all care about the software. That's just the enablement technology and the hardware behind it. What we care about is the fact that I can look at my phone and know I'm going to be picked up in 3.2 minutes. Oh, now it's 3 minutes. Now it's 1 minute. Now I'll leave my meeting. I mean, it's just a change in how you operate your day. That's what software has really done. But a funny thing has happened. All those software companies build their software on the premise that technology will continue to be better, faster. My software will run quicker. And most importantly, it's just a paradigm I can count on. So I'll treat compute, storage, networking as something that's just there, something that's just available. You know, and that's how everything started to get very, very cloudy, right? It was just like, well, I'll throw my application out on the cloud and it'll work because I'll get all the resources I need. Over time, those resources will get faster, my application will be better, and I'll write my application better. But that's not still the case, right? There's been a lot of talk about Moore's Law being dead, Moore's Law being stable, Moore's Law being flat. It was interesting. I spent a little time over the last couple months reading and tracking this. If you get interested in Google, there's more than a handful of articles over the last 3 years about this. What's important here? What is important that it started in the technology press, then it went to the Times and Forbes and Nature and MIT Technology Review, just to name a few, and then finally The Economist. For me, when you see it in The Economist, must be real, right? What that means is that there's a change going on, right? The change is, how do you drive innovation? How do you count on the platforms being faster, helping my applications run better so I can write more interesting applications so I can do company Uber 2X, right? Airbnb 2.0. And that's why I think we're all here today and tomorrow and the day before and the next day. Moore's law is not so much a law, but a technology promise, right? And it was a technology promise that has evolved over time. And the realization that's happening in the marketplace is it's just not going to continue to be faster at the same pace just because the chipset is getting faster. Now, I think this is great because it creates all sorts of opportunity for new innovation. I personally think we're in a new phase, a phase of collaborative innovation. The innovation is driven by everybody that's in this chain talking together and figure out how do we make the end user experience better, not just counting on one entity to deliver that value. So when we think about collaborative innovation, you got to think of it in the context that it changes how you operate, changes how you communicate, changes how you deal with the suppliers you've worked with, the partners, the vendors, the developers, the engineers, and even your customers, the marketplace in general. So if I was to say the last 5 years is about software eating the world, I think the next 5 years is about this, collaborative innovation changing the world. Now, how do we get there? It's certainly based on a framework of openness. It's a model that is being adopted more rapidly than I personally ever thought. If you've been following it, foundations are opening like weeds in a field, right? There's telecom foundations. There's people focused on hardware, OCP, new cloud models with OpenStack. Obviously, foundations that have been around a long time. From our perspective, the Ubuntu Foundation, Linux itself, that's where a lot of this journey has begun. But it's a change in how you operate and exchange ideas. Secondly, choice. The marketplace has been super clear on this. We want choice. We don't want lock-in. We want to be able to see different ways to get to the end state. There's been a couple of companies, AT&T is just fresh on my mind, that just released eComp, which is their strategy on how they're going to do networking. It's an internal white paper that they open sourced about a month ago, less than a month ago, and made available to the marketplace. It's a very big paradigm shift that started in what I'll call the open source community, like companies that focus on Linux, moved into the technology community, but now really going into the actual end user community. I think this is how we'll see innovation to continue to occur. There will always be spots for close to the end user, real valuable innovation that people may want to continue to own the IP. But a lot of the innovation should be done in a collaborative manner, built on a foundation of openness. And the collaboration is really a change. It's not easy. It's not always pretty. And it's sometimes sloppy. As if any of you participate in board meetings and discussion, work groups, meetups, there's a lot of dialogue that happens. But the output is fascinating, right? The output is the collective wisdom sort of rapid innovation. And when it happens and when it operates well, all these three pieces have the opportunity to change the paradigm of how we're bringing technology to market. And it must be working because of how many foundations we've been seeing. Over the next 5 years, we'll decide if it really worked. But I would say, and some of what we'll be showing you today, you'll already see the results of that in the OpenPOWER Foundation. So, talking about OpenPOWER, how did we get here? How do we think about our expansion of choice if collaborative innovation is really a way of the future? First, for those of you, my little commitment to Star Wars, this is, the idea that there was one, right? One chipset, x86, ruled the world. Then there were three, ARM Power. In the case of Power, we then came forward with IBM, came forward with Power 8. See how quickly we move into the collective we. I'll take credit for all of IBM's hard work. No, I'm just kidding, Brad, just kidding. Then IBM had the foresight thought, to open it up, to put it in a foundation, to ask for participation, not only from the hardware side of the equation, but also for companies like ours, from the software side of the equation. Because they had the forethought to recognize that looking at this as an open project where the end user and the application and the hardware manufacturer can collaborate to create new things was really going to be important. And what's been really exciting over the last 3 years, this is our second summit, we've seen the membership grow, and really we've seen the amount of innovation which you'll be seeing over the course of the day. So that sort of acceleration is what we're looking for. That's the acceleration. We hope all this effort, being here every day, working through work groups, being on conference calls, because somebody is always in a work group on a conference call in their bunny slippers because it's 3 a.m. somewhere, is, a real commitment of everybody involved. Oh, back. So let's talk a little bit about where we are over the last 3 years. 200 plus members, over 50 technologies revealed. I believe about 59 on the stage here. Over 2,000 applications, 2,300 applications that are running on Power and Linux. That's real momentum. The map shows the platinum members, but there's many, many members that are participating in this community to move it forward. And the pace over 3 years I find quite amazing. 24 countries, 6 continents, hundreds of innovations. This is about real momentum, and momentum that's obviously multiplied beyond just one single company. So let's just talk a little bit. I won't go through the solutions. Many more people through the course of the day will, but I wanted to illustrate 3 trends that I think are really illustrative of what we're trying to do. The first one is a board, but we're really going to have innovation around the board, the card, the chipset. The second category is really systems, right? You're going to see systems, Rackspace, others have all contributed to make working systems. And then what I'm really excited about, the third category, is really a solution to help analyze the entire human genome, but it's taking the software, the hardware, combining it, and actually solving problems. And to be honest, this is what we all care about, right? All the piece parts are fascinating because we all do it and love it. But at the end of the day, what the average person cares about is actually solving a problem, making the world slightly better in a specific way. And our job is to figure out how we add cards, systems, chips, software to bring that to realization, and hopefully quicker than we did last year. So talk a little bit of adoption. I'll just pick 4 areas that I thought were very interesting. Cloud and scale architecture. This is the area where we've seen uptake and interest in OpenStack. Telecom companies that are working with NFV, network function virtualization. Cloud providers like Rackspace bringing new technologies into their data center. Research, ULIC, Oregon University, University of Michigan, applying the technology in new ways to solve complex problems. Data analytics, Spark, Redis Labs, leveraging the power of OpenPOWER. And machine learning, new companies like SkyMind that are trying to take full advantage of what Power Platform can bring to new, deeper learning and the software obviously operating quicker. So this is really adoption, and adoption that's solving real problems. So let's talk about what I think we're really doing here in OpenPOWER beyond all the cool stuff. At the end of the day, we're bringing a collaborative model in a different way than any other foundation has, in my opinion. We're combining users, combining the hardware engineering community and the software developer community, and figuring out how together we can create a full stack that operates faster, that solves problems quicker. And what's different, given the openness, given the collaborative nature, the developer can throw ideas on the table that the hardware designer can take into account. The hardware designer can ask questions to the developer. The user can tell both parties what to do, and both parties can tell the user and what they're thinking about. This is what I really hope will drive much more rapid innovation over the next 5 years. And hopefully we'll all be reading about how the Wall Street Journal quoted collaborative innovation as being the way to drive technology movement over the next 5 years as compared to just software itself. So, for the next day or so, there's a couple things that we're doing that we'll show. But over the next year, I wanted to give you a sense of what we're going to be focusing on. We're clearly going to focus on growing membership and growing the value to the members in the OpenPOWER Foundation. This is the lifeblood of the organization and ever so critical if we're going to move forward. We also recognize, as I was talking about a second, the intersection of hardware users and developers is unique. We're going to work very hard to continue to expand the number of participants that are ISVs and developers and build that ecosystem, because that's how the value of the hardware is actualized and ultimately consumed by the end user, by the marketplace, right? It converts hardware value into solving problems. We're going to see more and more solution stacks, like I mentioned, deep learning and the university research around genomes. We're going to focus on helping to promote that and make that visible to the marketplace. We're going to make that visibility through case studies, through actually explaining to people why. Because what's happened is it's not a completely cloudy world. It's not just, I need generic compute, I need generic storage, I need generic networking. Now, as a developer, I can start thinking about how do I actually pull attributes of the hardware and take advantage of that, and maybe my application will run better. It'll still run on all the different platforms because I think that is expected in the marketplace. That ability to supply choice is so critical. But we're going to afford every developer to say, if my application runs here, it'll be a better experience. At my phone, I'll know when that car is coming to pick up a couple seconds quicker, maybe a couple minutes quicker. Maybe there'll be new features that weren't there yesterday. Those are the end results we're driving to. So a couple things coming up. We'll be present at the OpenStack Summit. We're actually going to showcase and demo a deep learning solution on Power with Ubuntu, with SkyMind. We'll be at and have an OpenPOWER European event in Germany in June. And we're working on our plan to have an OpenPOWER Summit in China. So, top priorities: members, ISVs and developers, solutions, telling the world. If we do those 4 things over the next year, hopefully our next summit will even have more exciting things to talk to you about. So, I'd like to thank you in advance for the time you spent today and the time you'll spend over the next couple days. And we appreciate all the time you're going to be spending as community members making the foundation operate better. Now, what I'd like to do is invite Callista, Brad, our past chairman, past president, Gordon, our past chairman, and Aaron up, because we're going to take a moment and unveil a whole set of technology innovations here under a set of covers. But first, I'd like to thank Gordon and Brad for all the excellent work they've done as president and chairman. And they've both been kind enough to volunteer to stay very active in an advisory capacity. Again, Brad, Gordon, thank you. So now we'll unveil some technology.